welcome everyone. Sorry for the delay. There's been some traffic issues here in Salt Lake City that have closed I-15 and created some problems. So we're finally able to get started here. I'm Eric Edgley. I'm the Habitat Section Chief for the Division of Wildlife Resources, and I'm the chair of the Habitat Council. We welcome all of you here to our combined Blue Ribbon and Habitat Council meeting here in Salt Lake City. And we're excited to review some great aquatics and fisheries projects today. So some logistics here today. We're going to kind of go through some introductions of folks that are here.
You made it.
Blake made it. Angie made it. Randy's here. Steve's probably lost, doing something else. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway. But we're grateful that everybody's here, and hopefully some more will come in as well. We want to remind everybody that this meeting is being streamed live over YouTube to the public. This is a public meeting. And the logistics of how this meeting goes is that when we meet together with Habitat Council and Blue Ribbon, is the first half of the meeting in the morning is all combined and together. And we don't do any voting on projects. We hear projects, we can discuss projects. We go through the process of question and answer on those. And then we save the voting on the morning's projects later on to the afternoon. Blue Ribbon Council will go through their own process of ranking and voting on projects, and Habitat Council will do our own voting on those projects as well. And so and then you'll have additional projects in the afternoon that are only be heard by either Blue Ribbon or Habitat Council. And as part of that process, when after lunch will be held here, but after lunch, which group's going upstairs?
Habitat Council.
Okay, so Habitat Council will go upstairs to room 2000. It's a smaller room, and Blue Ribbon folks can stay here and continue to utilize this room. And there will be a different streaming link that will be, you don't have to worry about, but so you know, there's a different link if you want to log on to the virtual meeting, or if people online want to jump on it. It's in the agenda that hopefully everybody has access to access that meeting in the afternoon, either for Blue Ribbon or Habitat Council. Okay. Other logistics. Yeah, I think, what did I miss, Daniel?
If you're presenting, please just come up to the podium up here. The camera will focus on that podium for the presenters.
Yeah, and presenters, make sure you introduce yourself, tell us your name, who you're representing. And there's a lot of streamed meetings for DNR today, so there's basically one microphone per table. So if you're responding to a question or speaking, please try to get as close to a microphone as you can, pass it around a little bit if we have to. And if the little circle is red, that means it's not turned on. Make sure you push the button so it's green when you're speaking, and that way all of the online folks can hear what we're saying. So, all right, with that, let's do some introductions of everybody that's here. Go ahead, Daniel, and we'll work our way around this way.
Daniel Eddington with the Habitat Council, Habitat Conservation Coordinator.
Okay, Eric Edgley, Habitat Section Chief.
I'm Drew Cushing, the Aquatic Section Chief.
Trina, Cold Water Sport Fish Coordinator for the state, and I just wanted to ask Blue Ribbon Council members, do you all have a score sheet? I did print some extras if you need any. You guys are good? Okay, great.
Colby Jones, I'm the Wildlife Section Chief.
Randy Hutchison, Upland Rep for Habitat.
Dave Bohannon, Southern Region Representative for Blue Ribbon.
Larry Finch, at-large rep for Blue Ribbon.
Terry Hill, at-large rep for Blue Ribbon.
Rich Lobrovich, Blue Ribbon Cold Waters representative.
Mickey Anderson, Blue Ribbon Commercial Rep.
Blake Millette, Habitat Council, Sport Fishing Representative.
Andy Wanacott, the Waterfowl Habitat Representative.
All right. Let's go to the back of the room here. Start back here. Who's hiding in the corner?
Josue Hernandez, sport fish biologist, Northeast Region.
Okay.
Danny Summers, I'm the assistant habitat section chief.
Thanks, Danny.
Allison Whitaker, Habitat Conservation Program Biologist, Wildlife.
Tyler Robinson, sport fish biologist with the Central Region.
Mike Slater, sport fish project leader in Central Region.
Melissa Early, impact analysis biologist, Northern Region.
Shane Hill, habitat restoration biologist, Northern Region.
Ryan Mosley, planning board project leader in the Northeast Region. Alan Ward, strawberry project leader in Central Region.
Mick Braithwaite, fisheries biologist in the Southern Region.
And Oakley Toomer, fisheries biologist in the Southern Region.
Glenn Brunson, assistant aquatics manager in the Northern Region.
All right. Thanks to everyone in the room. I'm going to go online here.
Missed one.
Did we miss one? Who did we miss? Sorry.
Sport fish biologist, Northern Region.
Thanks, Taylor. I appreciate that. Folks online that are on Blue Ribbon Council, can you jump online and introduce yourself? Brian?
I guess I thought we were doing council members. Brian Engelbert, Regional Aquatics Biologist out of the Northeast Region.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I'm just kind of guessing, so I'm just looking to see who's turning on their cameras. Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan Newman, Warm Water Rep, Blue Ribbon.
Okay, anybody else from Blue Ribbon?
This is Russ.
Oh, go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, Russ Lawrence. I just got into the parking lot, so I'll be in there in a minute, but Blue Ribbon Northern Region Rep.
Thanks, Russ. So Rebecca?
Rebecca Granillo, Cold Water Rep, Blue Ribbon.
All right. TJ? You're on mute.
TJ is probably stuck in the mess that I was stuck in as well.
Yeah, it looks like you're still on mute, TJ.
So TJ, if you look across the bottom, you see the microphone, it should be red. Just click that microphone and that'll unmute you. And if you're having problems with that, sometimes the only thing to do is log out and log back in, unfortunately.
That better?
Yep.
Right. You want me to mute now?
Yeah, introduce yourself and tell us who you represent.
TJ Sockless at Blue Ribbon, at large.
Great.
To turn around and come back home to get on remote because of the accident. So I think I'm good to listen.
Sounds good. Thank you, TJ. Anybody else from Blue Ribbon online? Okay. Sounds good. All right, we're going to move ahead here. Before we jump into projects, I need to thank Daniel Eddington for setting up the meeting, Allison and Lisa and Danny Summers for all of the logistics, the setup, the candy, drinks, all of those things. So again, I'll remind you that there's drinks in the cooler back here. There's some treats back there. Restrooms are just down the hall to the left. We will take a break at around 10:30 or so, maybe a little later than that. Okay, what did I forget, Daniel?
I think we're good.
All right, we're going to jump into projects then. I'll check in with Trina here. Anything else you need to mention about what we're doing here today? Okay. I enjoy these combined meetings. They're a little more complicated, but they're a lot of fun, and it's a good time that we get to review some really great projects. Question? I don't think anybody else from Habitat Council was online. The ones that are participating are here in person, so we're a lot smaller. Okay. All right, we're going to jump in. Our first project is in the northern region. Project number 7088, post-stocking survival and spatial ecology of Tiger Muskellunge in Pineview Reservoir. Remind you to, come up to the podium. There's a microphone sitting right there. Grab that microphone, make sure it's turned on, and tell us who you are.
There is a presentation under documents. Is this working? Yeah. Okay. All right, so I guess while Trina's getting that up, my name's Taylor Stewart. I'm a sport fish biologist with Utah Division of Wildlife out of the northern region. My focus is on reservoir fish management. And my collaborators on this project, Clint Brunson with Utah Division of Wildlife as well, and Blake, who's also in the room, is the chapter president from Mountain West Muskies, Inc. Do I have ability to advance, or is it just you?
Say next, and I'll go back.
Okay, next. So this project is focusing on acoustic telemetry within Pineview Reservoir for tiger muskies. So Pineview Reservoir is a popular recreational destination, as well as a blue ribbon fishery primarily for these trophy fish tiger muskies. It's the home to the only established tiger muskie fishery near the Wasatch Front. Sorry, Tyler, Jordanelle doesn't count. And we stock it very heavily, the division does, with 20,000 tiger muskie fingerlings stocked annually every year, which is by far the most in the state by peer numbers. Next. Despite all that time and effort that we put into it, we've seen a pretty sharp population decline in our tiger muskie fishery. Angler catch rates have decreased, as well as I'm sure Blake could probably tell you, some very vocal anglers expressing some deep dissatisfaction with the current fishery, and most of that's through the drought. Our age data that our chapter members collect for us shows a pretty sharp decline in early life survival over the last 4 years. Next. But we really don't understand why this decline is happening, and we have a lot of questions that get into that. And these are just kind of possible explanations, but really it comes down to we need a greater understanding of some basic life history, a greater understanding of these basic life history questions in order to try to improve this fishery as a whole to maintain that trophy status. So what we're proposing to do is use acoustic telemetry. For those of you that probably don't know what acoustic telemetry is, it's essentially just underwater tracking of a fish. And so what we're proposing to do is to deploy an array of acoustic telemetry receivers. So that picture on the left side shows what a receiver would look like. It's suspended, or it's dropped to the bottom, suspended slightly off the bottom of the reservoir. And we're proposing to deploy 12 receivers. So each of these black dots represents a receiver location, and the circle encompassing around it would be the detection radius. So you can see that, especially with Pineview Reservoir, because of how segmented the forks of that reservoir are, we can actually get very good spatial coverage with just a few number of receivers. Next. And then in terms of tracking those individual fish, what we're proposing to do is surgically implant transmitters. So these are the things that send out that signal in the water that those receivers then detect. We're proposing to stock 100 juveniles prior to stocking. And so the benefit of doing juveniles prior to stocking is we can hold those fish in our hatcheries. We can ensure that they're surviving post-surgery and not lose any tags that way. And then we're also proposing to take 25 adult muskies. So that would be going out, collecting those adults via hook and line, and tagging those fish. And so by splitting these across those two different life stages, we're able to, one, study different life stages across juveniles and adults for habitat use and behavior, but it also allows us to extend the duration of this study. So using those adults, we're able to implant much larger tags that have a greater battery life, extending the duration of this project to 5 to 7 years, versus the juveniles, which need to be smaller because of the smaller body size, which have a shorter lifespan of 1.5 years. Next. So what might this data look like? So this is kind of just a theoretical simulation of a fish swimming through Pineview. So if we were to go out and stock this fish here at this green dot, that fish then starts swimming through the reservoir, and each of these, the blue line represents the swimming path, and each of those blue circles that pops up is a detection. And so as this goes, you'll see just the magnitude of detections that comes with this type of technology. We're going from something like, less than 50 detections using something like radio telemetry to 26 million detections using acoustic telemetry, because we're not actively having to go out there and actually track this fish. It's doing all the work for us. So from this type of data, we can infer post-stocking survival rates. We can also get a better estimate of what's going on in the reservoir in terms of competition. So if we put a fish in a certain location, we can look at where is it swimming to, how much are they dispersing. We can estimate home ranges for those fish, as well as get an estimate for the overall carrying capacity of that reservoir, which ultimately helps us determine optimal stocking rate to ensure we're not over or under stocking that population. Next. We can also summarize those detections, so all those little blue circles that popped up, into something that looks like this, where we have sort of a heat map. And you can hit next probably a few times, where we can identify sort of these hot spots of habitat use for those fish. But each of those detections are also time-stamped, so we can look at seasonal movements throughout time. So if this fish was stocked here, perhaps it's swimming up here in the summer, it's coming back down in the winter. We can look at where those seasonal movements are to get a better understanding of their spatial ecology. Next. And so, like I said, all this helps us to improve our stocking density. So looking at competition, not only among tiger muskies within the reservoir, but also how much they're competing for that space with their forage base as well. And that all helps us improve timing and locations of stocking, but also allows us to do habitat improvements in certain targeted areas. Next. So for habitat work, we've done 4 years worth of habitat installments in Pineview, and most of this is targeted at deep water habitat. Are you fine?
Yeah, you can go.
All right. So most of this is targeted at deep water habitat in terms of trying to improve the forage base. So fish like yellow perch, black crappie, bluegill, things like that, in terms of providing habitat for them during high drawdown years, where that nearshore habitat, the vegetation, the submerged shoreline goes away, and it's just left with a sandy, rocky bottom. So these habitats provide that structure for them. But we don't have a great understanding of how those habitats are being used as of right now. So using the information from this acoustic telemetry project can kind of help us guide where we're going with future habitat work in terms of how important are these habitats during drawdowns. Do we need to focus on different areas, putting in more natural habitat near shore as nursery habitat, and ultimately asking just further questions to go out there and improve our understanding. Next. And then in terms of statewide implications, so 21 waters are actively stocked with tiger muskies. 7 of those are blue ribbon fisheries. Next. And then understanding behavior and ecology, especially within reservoirs within the Intermountain West, is pretty uncharted territory for these species. And so these are important steps to help us effectively manage and improve our statewide management plans. And in terms of budget, most of this budget is tied up in the technology, so acoustic receivers and tags. We did submit a grant through the National Organization of Muskies, Inc., through the Hugh Becker grant for $10,000. That $10,000 could either be used to increase sample size of the tags that we're able to purchase, or kind of augment some of the cost through blue ribbon or habitat. There's some field and surgical supplies needed to do this, and then looking at just some in-kind time for field work, as well as an additional $20,000 for habitat structures in the future. And I put an asterisk on this just to emphasize that $36,000 of that cost for acoustic receivers is reusable. So this is sort of an investment in technology. These receivers can have batteries replaced. They can be retrieved from the bottom of the reservoir. They can be moved to other bodies of water. We can put tags in new fish. We can put them in rivers. This is, like I said, it's an investment in technology for us to expand to different areas as well. Next, and that's all I have for you. I'd be happy to take any questions.
So the Blue Ribbon guys have a series of questions, and I'll just answer those questions that they need to kind of remember. The first one is, what does it enhance fish populations? I think listening to Taylor talk, we're trying to figure out our survival of these tiger muskies we put in. Trying to figure out how well utilized the habitat structures that guys like Sorno have spent a lot of time and investing in going to conferences and stuff and seeing how useful those are at different water elevations. So it definitely is useful for our fish populations. We're including fish habitat. We're adding fish habitat. Probably within the next month or so, we're going to add another $20,000 of structures into Pineview that I was given from Blue Ribbon and Habitat Council last year. It doesn't improve angler access, but what this does is it does, on the habitat side, it does increase the habitat in the south arm, which is where I'll be targeting most of this implementation. It's kind of like a bathtub bottom. I mean, there's just not a lot there on the south arm, and it's one area that the reservoir, as they hold a gate open and allow a boat dock or boat ramp to be open year-round, that's the closest one for anglers to access, either via boat or on the ice. We are not looking for any additional staffing needs off of this. This is purely research-based. We'll use the technicians that we have every year and the interns that we have every year. And I do feel that we will be very successful in finding out exactly our survival, especially these 8-inch muskies that we're putting in. And really get some better video of the use of those structures instead of just me fishing those structures and catching fish off of them. So at that, you can ask questions to either one of us. Dave?
So remember to find a microphone and turn it on.
Oh,
if you would.
sorry.
Thanks.
I was just curious, what's the next closest comparable water to Pineview for tiger muskie? Would it be Joe's Valley, or? And are they experiencing the same things you guys are with the growth of their muskie and reduction of catch rate?
Joe's would be closer than Schofield. Jordanelle's closer than that, but we're going to be running our electrofishing unit with the Central Region this year to find tiger muskies there. They're a little elusive. They're hard to catch with electrofishing equipment. We have a new unit and found out that instead of using our electric trolling motor, which is too slow even at 10 to catch up, we were using our big motor on the boat and having success at catching them. Joe's is a different prey structure, and I think it's probably the closest comparison. But you have chubs, you have splake, you have,
forage base.
Yeah, your forage base isn't pokey. Like it's not spiny like perch and crappie are at Pineview.
Newton, I guess, would probably be the closest in terms of this. Newton would be the closest in terms of like species composition for the forage, but Newton sees tremendous drawdowns. We do stock it, but we don't put a lot of effort into there just because we don't know if those fish are going to survive at all by the end of the summer.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I've got multiple questions. So what size fish are you releasing?
16. They come out of our hatchery at 6 inches. Sometimes they're up to 8 inches.
And what happens when a predatory fish eats a smaller fish that has a transmitter? What happens to that transmitter?
That transmitter then passes through that predatory fish, drops to the bottom of the reservoir, and so we can use, it still continues to transmit, but we can use some criteria to determine that just based off of lack of movement, and as well as these transmitters have pulse delays essentially to avoid tag collisions. So if all those tags are pulsing at the same time, it would just be a flood of signals to that receiver. And so we offset them all. And so by knowing what that pulse delay is and how consistent that detection is, we can determine if that fish is dead sitting at the bottom or if it's just a tag even at the bottom.
And then last, are there going to be any budget requirements in follow-up years? I know you addressed the hardware issue that it's reusable, but are you going to look at this particular water for multiple years, and do you need other budget to do that?
So the juvenile tags, like I showed, are only, the battery life on those is 1.5 years. So if we found positive results with those juveniles and wanted to look at it across a different year where there's maybe a change in environmental conditions, that would be an additional ask. But those adult tags last 5 to 7 years. And in that budget, there's battery replacements for those receivers built in.
Thank you.
Russ?
Yeah, what's the lifespan of the receivers themselves estimated? And then once they're in, how do you retrieve them?
So the batteries last about a year. So if you can picture that one slide where I had a picture of the receiver on that float, basically what we do is we run a snag line off of that, so 150 meters long, something like that, and we drag a grapple that catches that snag line and allows us to pull it back up. We swap out that battery, drop it right back down, and that's it for maintenance-wise, and that's once a year. But in terms of the duration, the lifespan as a whole for those receivers, until technology advances to something greater and better.
So we have a question online from Ryan Newman. Ryan, are you able to ask that question?
Yeah, thanks so much. I know you said that you weren't really improving access for anglers, but I guess I'm conflicted on that. I'm just wondering how much of this information and data would be given to the public, to anglers. I mean, I guess in a sense you could be providing increased access to the information and the data that you guys would provide from this information would be awesome for anglers to see. I saw that map of where the fish was located, and I'm like, oh, that'd be awesome. So I guess in a sense you could increase the access through sharing that. So are you guys going to share that information with everyone?
It certainly could be. I mean, this is essentially a full-blown research proposal in a sense. So, I mean, this could lead into publications. It could lead into, open access data. Absolutely.
Any other questions? Blake.
You mentioned recovering the receivers with with the snag line. A lot of us who are fishing Pineview, targeting muskies while we're trolling, we're running deep diving lures with heavy pound test. We're pounding the bottom. What's the risk of an angler snagging that line?
I mean, you're not usually fishing 50, 60 feet down, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, these receivers would be placed in kind of that center channel of that fork. They'd be deeper, I think, than most of what anglers would be fishing. Someone could be bottom jigging, possibly, and snag it. And I have seen that happen. So I've run acoustic telemetry projects throughout the Great Lakes as well as Lake Champlain. And we do see where anglers will snag that and they'll drag the receiver. And in that case, what we do is we scuba dive. You go and dive down. We have an ROV as well that we could go down remotely and look for that receiver to identify the location and then dive down and retrieve it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any information on angler hour usage annually for fishing tiger muskie on Pineview?
Some of the chapter members do have that data, so they do keep logs. That is something that we are going to do this year. They're actually going to report their angling hours to us as well as their catch rates. And so that's an effort that Craig Walker's leading through the aquatic section here and trying to actually do it statewide. But Pineview is by far the most heavily used water by the chapter in terms of the data that they provide back to us.
Any other questions on this project? Okay, and I'll remind, if there are any council members, either, Blue Ribbon or whatnot, online, do like what Ryan had done and just raise your hand and I'll call on you. if there's questions or comments online. So, all right. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next project. Project 7090, Northern Region Office, fiscal year 25 Conservation Easement Monitoring Technician.
Good morning. My name is Melissa Early. I'm an impact analysis biologist and also assistant habitat manager in the Northern Region. And today I'm talking about Project 7090, so our Conservation Easement Monitoring Seasonal Technician. Next slide, please. So in the Northern Region, we have just under 30 conservation easements, and about 8 of those are riparian easements. We have a few in Weber County on the Ogden River, a few small in acreage, and then we have some in Summit County on the Weber River. But also of note, we have several significant properties in the range of hundreds of acres, as well as a few like much smaller, 30 or so acres. So it runs the spectrum of 1 acre to up to 500 acres. I mentioned the riparian easements, and we have, also significant easements for big game habitat. So last fall, we had a wonderful seasonal easement technician, and he really helped us with project and program modernization. So Shane Hill helped us with creating an app in Survey 123, and so we're really taking the program from some past records of like paper files to digitization and really modernizing our data collection. So we're asking for funding for, again, a field season, their equipment, supplies, vehicle, and the total cost is $13,250. Just here's a picture showing some of our data points from the actual monitoring out in the field. Next slide, please. And this photo that you can see taken by our technician this fall, showing a viewpoint from a conservation easement property that's helping to protect habitat for big game. You can see outside the boundaries of the easement that there's a lot of development occurring. So just to emphasize like the importance of this easement program, because again, easements help protect the values of quality wildlife habitat, and monitoring assures that the values are being upheld. So in an era of increasing development all around the Northern Region, this easement program is really important. And also, we hope to eventually acquire more conservation easements and help protect wildlife habitat. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any questions for Melissa on this project? And maybe while they're thinking of that, I'll jump in first. Melissa, talk about, we have a Blue Ribbon Committee here, and this is our aquatics focus meeting. Talk about the aquatics benefits of what you're proposing to fish and aquatic habitats.
Yes, so I mentioned that we have about, I believe, like 8 properties divided between the Ogden River and the Weber River under easement. And so, some of these properties are in the Weber, historically like bluehead sucker habitat, and also just assuring that the river with the monitoring is in good shape with past projects that have been done, past projects to mitigate erosion. I know Sorno was involved in some of these projects, so that's why it has that Blue Ribbon connection. And then, like I mentioned, a number of the other properties are really important for big game. But as the technician monitors the riparian areas, they're looking for an eye of like potential projects and just keeping an eye on any issues that we're seeing with like trash, and also looking at angler access too.
Thanks, Melissa.
I don't have a question, but just a quick note for Blue Ribbon Council. I didn't see that, well, sorry. It wasn't coming up in a search for all the Blue Ribbon funding, so that's why it's not on your score sheet. Maybe just, put it down below and just add it in, and when you send me your scores, we'll just have it included in that spreadsheet. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and as you can see on the screen, it shows up what the breakdown is between Habitat Council Ask and Blue Ribbon Ask on there, and this is something that we have funded in the past through this meeting. Right. Any other questions on this?
Yeah, I can't see, what is the amount from Blue Ribbon?
1,325. Okay, thank you. All right. Move on to our next project. Project 6868, Little Bear Logan Watershed Restoration. 6868.
So the upland portion Shane will present. If you just want to go to the database and pull up the map, like the map this project.
Clint, did you introduce yourself previously?
You bet.
Okay.
Clint Brunson, Assistant Aquatics Manager in the Northern Region. If you want to go down to Hiram, that would probably be the best. And zoom into Hiram. Go up, yeah. So like here. Go up on your screen a little bit more. There's like 3 little dots right here in the canyon. Yep, right there. So the blue ribbon portion of this and the portion of this that I'm asking for is I've had an irrigation company and there's two landowners that have come and asked for help between Trout Unlimited and the Division of Wildlife and an engineering firm to look at some erosion on the Blacksmith. And we've been working in this area doing fish passage work for the last couple of years that's come through this group. And so this year, my ask from Habitat and Blue Ribbon both is $10,500 to do these three projects, use the division crew to do some bank stabilization, and then we're going to finish out a diversion project on the river, which is this bigger section. Right now, the diversion is functional. It allows fish passage, but due to some funding issues this fiscal year, we're not able to get everything finished, and so we would like to finish that project and then these other two smaller projects. We have about $50,000 that's coming from non-point source that's going to pay for the design and oversight, as well as my time there. And Shane was gracious enough to let me kind of jump in on this project as we've been asked to combine projects, and he's just further upstream. So that's my portion. All of these landowners that I've talked to are allowing access for anglers if they want to. There's public access, usually either upstream or downstream. In one case, there's both. So those fish that are on these properties are also available for angler access. I will be doing habitat work, doing a lot of large woody stumps and root wads in the banks, and creating some pools and some slower water areas as we do these projects. So we are going to be creating some fish habitat here. And I'll turn the rest to Shane.
Can I jump in on you guys here really quick? So the first part of the aquatics part of this project is what you've presented, Clint. Correct. So what you have now is the upland terrestrial stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, there are some aquatics components to the upland stuff as well.
Okay, we'll go ahead and let you present here. I was thinking maybe we'd push the rest of the presentation to this afternoon for just Habitat Council, but if you have some aquatic information included,
okay,
let's go ahead. So.
Yeah, I'll go over everything since we go. Okay, so my name's Shane Hill. I'm habitat restoration biologist in the northern region, and like Clint said, we've combined our our efforts to kind of do watershed scale work, many different methods of restoration going on in the Little Bear Logan watershed. Next. So this map doesn't include what Clint talked about, but just kind of show where this work is happening and so to orient, we got Hardware Ranch here at the top, and the work is going all the way from Hiram Hardware Ranch down to our new Cinnamon Creek wildlife management area. Next. So components of this proposal are the juniper removal, both through mastication and lop and scatter. And I'll go over each of these more in depth later on. Next. Doing some BDA work to improve stream and riparian habitat for fish and big game and sage grouse all throughout this watershed. Next. Some more summer range improvements for big game on our Cinnamon Creek WMA through some weed control and planting shrubs. Next. And then we're working with the Forest Service and our aquatics team to improve some pond habitat for boreal toads. Next. Okay, let's go more in depth here. The Mahogany Ridge portion of this project is the mastication on just west of our hardware WMA on the Forest Service. We're proposing to do about 13,000 acres of encroached mahogany and sagebrush stands. Next, and this portion will be the third phase of what we've been trying to get done in this area for past 3 years. We've gotten 2 other phases completed on and around Hardware Ranch. So the blue portion is what we're proposing now. Next. We are partnering with private landowner as well to do some sage grouse habitat improvement around Sheep Creek. Go in there and do a lop and scatter to remove the junipers that have encroached in the sagebrush habitat there. Next. And the BDAs, we will also be working on the private land, but also on our Cinnamon Creek WMA. This will improve the upland and the riparian habitat stream. On the Cinnamon Creek WMA, particularly Red Rock Creek in dry years is dewaters, and with these BDAs, we've already done one phase. We'd like to do this is a second phase. We'd get in there and increase the length of time that there's water in the stream, and hopefully make it perennial again. Which there are a native strain of Bonneville cutthroat trout down lower in it, and hopefully we'll be able to allow them to move higher up, which would be more accessible for fishermen on the WMA. Next. I'll briefly like this with the Forest Service and aquatics. We've picked a couple springs on Buck Springs and Davenport Springs on the Forest Service, as well as a few on our Cinnamon Creek WMA to improve some stock ponds that are not necessarily appropriate for the boreal toad, and we like to do some earth work to move to create more ponds around these stock ponds and grade them in a way that will be beneficial to the toads. This will also improve summer range for big game by increasing the riparian, the wet meadow and riparian habitats around these springs. Next. And finally, we're going to be purchasing container stock shrubs, and after controlling the weeds through like herbicide on our Cinnamon Creek WMA, and go back in and plant some more appropriate shrubs for this area for big game there. Next. again, this is a big partnership. I just wanted to highlight, we're working with Fish and Wildlife Service. They're helping us on the private land, forestry, fire state lands, also on the private land, and the Forest Service. We're all collaborating together to get all this work done for the watershed scale work we're doing here. If we're gonna look at the budget, it'd probably be more appropriate to go to the. Actually, you've already covered your. Okay, so this is just a little out of date slide, but we're asking from our various different grants about $420,000. The biggest portion of that is for the mastication. The Forest Service is contributing $150,000. But yeah, about 330,000 of it is going for the mastication work. Everything else is relatively cheaper. Next, yeah. With that, we'll take any questions about all the work.
So Shane, I'll start the questions here really quick. So on the funding side of things, this is, like you pointed out, this is almost what, $480,000 project or whatever, and from Blue Ribbon and Habitat Council separately, you're asking for, looks like $10,500 each from both councils, but it looks like WRI, you requested basically the balance of the cost of the project.
Yeah, correct. I mean, I think those could be changed as appropriately. We kind of rely on Daniel and Tyler to help us get the funds we need.
And that $10,500 for both Habitat Council and separately Blue Ribbon also covers the cost of what Clint presented as well. So with that, questions? Drew.
I have one. So I like the work, I like the project, but the Forest Service and TU got, I think, $48 million through the BIL program to do work on the Bear River. And what would have really been exciting is to see how this fits in with that $48 million.
So you're talking about the wildfire crisis fund?
It was through Fish Passage.
Oh, you were that.
So Jim Dorito and the cash.
On the upper Bear, we were able to get it. We haven't been able to get it anywhere else.
Yeah.
As we've been applying. So.
I'm just saying, you know, that there's a hell of a lot of money that's being spent on the Bear River, and this is, you know, a small part of that. And what really would be interesting is seeing how this fits in with the rest of that money.
I am aware that a lot of the money that's going to the North Slope, the UNAs, is not available to this portion of the forest. Maybe that's not related to your question, but yeah, we were hoping the same. But like the cash area is not getting the same benefit from the BIL money that the rest of the forest is.
It really is. Tanner and I have tried, Jim and I have tried, and the only one that was able was this one that Jim and I did last fall. It was the only one that worked. I don't know why.
Not a criticism of you guys, just, you know, it really would have been cool to see, you know, that money come together for, you know, for a project here. But thank you.
Other questions? Go over here and then down here.
Does the Forest Service actually do the mastication work with their equipment?
No, they contract through us. I do the contracting portion of that. So we get a private contractor to go and do it, yeah.
Okay, question down here.
Could you define the beaver dam analogs?
Yeah, sorry, I talk about it so much, sometimes I forget who's...
You know what a beaver dam is?
Yeah.
I don't know what an analog is.
If you go back, I don't know if there's...
Just picture him as the biggest beaver that you've ever seen. He makes his own beaver dams.
So, yeah, we're mimicking beaver dams by...
A fake pseudo beaver dam.
Yeah, I should have put... We've built some already on the Cinnamon Creek, but basically we go into the stream and we pound in posts and then do with natural materials, weave in mud and branches that mimic beaver dams to kind of slow that erosion down. with the hopes in some cases that beavers will be able to move in and kind of take over and slow down the erosion and hold water back, slow it down so that there's water on the landscape longer throughout the season.
So basically, it's an artificial beaver dam.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the goal and objective of those beaver dam analogs typically is to just slow down the water so sediment drops out and it builds up the riparian area again, where often it's been blown out by floods or what happens after fires and whatnot. And so, I don't know, Daniel's working hard to try to find photos.
Sorry.
For you. So we'll keep talking about it while he's looking, but.
Just Google beaver dam analog, you'll get lots of.
Can you mention what kind of systems you typically use those in?
In typically perennial streams, the typical Western model of the streams where they're kind of narrowing and becoming bowling alleys, and where there's excessive erosion, and sometimes the water even goes subsurface. So these just kind of raise the water table, just like regular real beaver dams do. They raise the water table, hold the water up, and increase allow riparian vegetation to grow around the periphery of the stream. And so perennial streams that are eroding is where we target, or where beavers aren't currently working.
First and second order streams, usually. I think that's what you're looking for.
Sorry, I don't.
Was, unless you're in the strawberry. Oh, I'm not gonna say that. Yeah, but I was smaller systems, right? That's important to know.
Okay, other questions? Go ahead.
You mentioned the possibility of restoration of the cutthroat trout up there. Have you guys done any research work on either other systems where this has been accomplished, or what? I'll go with gut feelings too.
Yeah, so on the Logan, we did a restoration project 2012 and through 2014. And in 2012, we built a large barrier on right-hand fork over a couple of years, and then we treated that system and removed all the brown trout. And currently, you'd have to ask Matt for specific numbers, but it's one of the highest densities of cutthroat trout that he's electrofished in his career here in the region. So can be very, very successful. And these are high elevation little streams that would be very beneficial for cutthroats to use.
And if you're referring to the use of the BDAs for, so it's right now for that particular system, the hope is that they'll just naturally move up once there's a more persistent flow of water. It doesn't dry up in the hot years, but perhaps in the central region, we did work by doing BDAs, releasing beavers, and then releasing cutthroat trout. I don't know where that work is, but maybe Mike Slater could touch base on that. But that was a couple years ago.
Is there a clear path for the fish to get up into these creeks if there's perennial water in them?
Yeah, they're already there. They're kind of like he was talking about. They're just downstream of Cinnamon Creek WMA. I mean, they're just down. There's just not enough water to keep them alive during the summertime on our dry years like we went through. So the hope is with these being installed, we'll get some perennial water, and the vegetation in some of the areas is super thick. You'd have to take a chainsaw to get into the stream in some of these locations, once we get some water there to stay longer.
Okay, Randy, you have a question?
So Shane, are these BDAs, are they going to be up in the same area that the other ones are being built?
Yeah, so the BDAs is typically a process, but we'll build some and then go in and reevaluate how those ones did, or if they need to be rebuilt, or maybe build some in between those existing ones. So it's a process. We're trying to build that stream back up, hold water up, get it back, raise the water table, hold it back into the sponge of the riparian area so that it can be released all throughout the year. So we'll go in and either build them in between or on top of the existing ones.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if you're expanding into new areas or just putting more into the same
In
area.
this case, we're more in the same area.
All right, other questions? Okay. Thanks, gentlemen. All right, we're going to move on to some Central Region projects. The next one will be 6889 Strawberry Reservoir Co-op Snowplow FY 2025. So this one comes to us every year.
Yeah, sorry, this isn't new for those of you who have been here more than a year. But there are some new things about it.
Remember to introduce yourself.
What's that?
Remember to introduce yourself.
Oh, yep, sorry. Alan Ward, Strawberry Project Leader with the Central Region. And like I say, the snow plowing project up there is not a new one, but there are a few different nuances that I'll try to cover quickly. One is that we installed or built a new parking lot over on Chicken Creek East. It's enlarged. It's bigger now, quite a bit bigger actually, and we've been getting a lot of traffic in on that Chicken Creek East parking area, and people are starting to use it. It's kind of fun to see that one of your projects is working out and people are utilizing it. So that's been a good thing. But with that, we have increased acreage that needs to be plowed every winter. So we bumped up the totals. If we can go to the finance page, we'll talk about that really briefly. So typically I ask for about 20,000 or so. We bumped that up to 32,000. However, Forest Service, for the first time since I've been here, and that's 24 years, is actually throwing money at this project. And I was, I think for a lot of us that came as a huge surprise. But they called me up and they says, hey, we'll throw $10,000 into the pot for this project this year. I was like, okay, that's cool. But then you're going to have to understand why they're throwing $10,000 into this. There is a little backstory on that I'll need to cover briefly just so that you guys have a heads up. Some of these areas like Chicken Creek East, Mud Creek, the Ladders, Hawes Point, and a few other areas around the reservoir are now becoming part of one of their recreation areas, very similar to what you see up American Fork Canyon or up on the Mirror Lake Highway. As a result, as they phase into this, which it's probably going to start happening next year in 2025, as they phase into that, they are going to start collecting fees at those sites. We will no longer be covered under the concessionaire who currently runs some of those sites. And the Forest Service will be directly collecting those fees. They'll have kiosks, automated ones set up at all those locations. And there will be some improvements associated with that as far as like restrooms, facilities, I don't remember what else, trash collection, a few different things at those sites that they have to get up to a certain level or a certain standard before they can start collecting fees. Once they start collecting fees, that money comes in and has to be spent back on that forest into those sites. So that's why they threw in the $10,000 is in anticipation of these fees being started to collect and possibly the end of this year, first of next year. So it's going to change the dynamics of things up there a little bit. The fees at those sites will, like I say, will be charged at the site, and that money will be going back to it. The hope is that each year the Forest Service will now be able to kick in more money into projects like this and to maintain some of the snow plowing and the access into those during the wintertime as well. So that's how this is kind of, we're in that transition phase of going from us paying the whole bill to the Forest Service helping out on that. So my ask this year is going to be $22,000. And of course, this is for the snow plowing and the access into those parking areas that we've been providing for the last, well, we've been kicking into it for 12 to 14 years, something like that. But we've, same as in the past, the state parks is contracted to do the work. We've got an agreement with them. We get a really good bargain out of them as far as being able to get those plowed in the wintertime. With the kind of snow that we get up at Strawberry, last year was one of the worst years we've ever seen. And I think we only spent about $16,000 towards that plowing last year. So even on our worst winters, we should be able to cover that cost pretty easily. So we get a really good bargain out of them. They just pay for their, time for the operator, and then they've already got the equipment and of course the fuel cost to keep those opened up. So I don't think I have anything else I need to add to this. So if you got questions, I'll answer them the best I can.
Questions?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Do they keep the roads plowed into Strawberry Marina?
No, so the one that goes into the marina, the West Side Road, the Phillips actually keep that road open.
The concessionaire?
Well, the concessionaire that I referred to earlier was the one that runs the campgrounds. The Strawberry Marina is owned by the Phillips family, and they're the ones that operate the store and the lodge and the boat docks out there. And so in the wintertime, he actually has a plow that he uses to plow that road open, to keep it open for access into his store and to the lodge.
And the Forest Service charges a fee during the summer to go in there, right?
They only charge a fee if you go into the parking lots, like into the marina parking lot, and use the facilities there, or of course the campgrounds. And that's the concessionaire up there that charges those fees.
And now the Forest Service is going to capitalize on our efforts at Chicken Creek.
Well, so yeah, on those areas, you're going to drag me into the whole conversation here, Dave. I was hoping to keep this short. So what's going to actually happen is the sites that I'd mentioned, like Chicken Creek, Ladders, Mud Creek, Hawes Point, are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Those sites are going to be under what they call a RIA, and it's a Recreational Something Act, whatever. I can't remember the whole acronym. But the Forest Service will be charging those fees, and they'll have, like I say, pay stations at each one of those sites where you can pay your fee, or you can buy a yearly pass to get into those sites. The concessionaire, which is Utah Recreation Corporation, Recreation Company, something like that, URC, they're the ones that run the campgrounds and the parking at the marinas. So if you want to go into Strawberry Marina, Strawberry Marina, Renegade, Soldier Creek, you're going to have to pay that concessionaire their fee to go into those sites. But if you're going to some of these other more dispersed sites, the concessionaire the URC has been charging at already, so you're supposed to pay if you go into the Ladders, for instance, to the URC. That's going to switch to the Forest Service and this different fee schedule, which is actually cheaper in the long term.
Okay, next question.
So my recreation pass from the federal government will now work. I can throw that on my dashboard there.
Yep. If you go to those sites, if you go to the marina, you'll have to pay the URC fee. But if you go to these other sites, it will work.
Okay, other questions? So I will say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is a new parking lot now, right?
Yeah, there was one there.
Yeah.
An older one in a kind of a different location. It was a lot smaller.
Yeah.
This new one is a lot bigger. That's why we kind of bumped up the ask for the costs.
And the parking lot was basically put in and improved by our heavy equipment crew to help save costs from last year.
Forest Service actually contracted that out.
Okay.
And then our equipment crew actually went up there this last year and did the reclamation of the old sites too.
Okay, right. All right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. All right. One more project from the Central Region, Lower Provo River Angler Access Improvements, 6890. Mike, welcome.
I'm Mike Slater, and I work as the Sportfish Project.
Grab the mic phone, would you? Thanks.
Sportfish Project Leader in the Central Region there in Springville. I'm going to ask you to go to the images first for me. And maybe give a little bit of background as to why we're coming to you and why we have this project on the table. For decades, the Lower Provo River below Deer Creek Reservoir has been accessible to anglers up and down the canyon, really without any issues or any problems. Due to some recent landowner changes, some disputes over some angler access easements that the Division of Wildlife has, some of that access has been dwindling or has become a little difficult, and people find themselves getting into a little bit of trouble and going into the wrong locations or the wrong places. And in an effort to kind of alleviate that or continue to allow anglers access to the famed Provo River, a lot of people are starting to boat. They're going down to just below Deer Creek Dam, and they're putting in their small fly crafts or their small rafts of some kind, and they're floating the river, which is legal to do from top to bottom. And so we thought, let's go in and let's make some improvements to where they are already accessing the Provo River. This is one of them. This is right below the dam. And a lot of the guides and the kind of clients that they have, it's more of a safety issue a little bit. And so we initially wanted to come in and take a place like this and use our heavy equipment crew to smooth it out, to make it easier, to make it so that us 60-year-old people can kind of walk down without falling, without getting hurt, and get into their boats and then be able to float the river. Maybe go to the next picture, if you would. Maybe another one. Do I have one more? No, I don't. Okay, I don't have. In addition to this is the put in. This is where people are wanting to put their boats in. Well, we've got to have a place for them to take out as well. Down at Vivian Park is one of the locations. We're working with Utah County, and there's a place where people, the tubers, the rafters, anglers can pull out, but it's a little precarious there as well. And so we would like to use our heavy equipment crew to come in, go into those locations and scratch that material out and make it a little safer, sign it, and make it so that people can get out in that location. Another one is what we call the tunnels, just below the Sundance turnoff. There's another location there where a lot of anglers like to park along there, and it's a place where they can pull their raft out there. There's some very minor things that we could do there to make that a little bit easier. So again, it's all about access, trying to appease the anglers and allow the anglers better access to the fishing along the Provo River, basically through the boats. Let's go to the finance page, if you would. What I'm going to cover here, again, I'm not talking about what we as an agency were initially wanting to do here. We were looking at about $40,000, splitting that between the Habitat Council and the Blue Ribbon Advisory Council to cover those costs that we just talked about. I would make just a little bit of a modification to that $40,000. The Utah Stream Access Coalition has come to us, and they are wanting to contribute $10,000 towards this project. So I haven't updated the finance page here, so rather than $20,000 and $20,000, it would be $15,000 and $15,000 would be the ask to the two groups. Now you see some other really large numbers here. $800,000. What turned out is, while we were wanting to improve the access for the anglers, Deer Creek State Park, who manages right below the dam, there's a restroom there and a dirt parking lot, areas where people come to access the river. Primarily a lot of tubers. It's a super heavily used area for people floating the river. And Deer Creek State Park, responsible to manage this area, have come in and they want to make improvements. And so what their improvements are involving is a paved road from Highway 189 all the way down to where that boat ramp improvement that I talked about, all the way down to there. They're going to have a huge parking lot there for people to park. They're going to create a cement boat ramp, also a hand launch rail where people can put their small crafts on and kind of take them down the little rail. Just much, much more than what we ever envisioned in doing. So when they got on board, or I found out what they were doing, we then got together, met together and say, hey, how do we meld these two together? And so really it's turning out to where we're piggybacking onto them. We're still going to have these takeouts. Some of our funds, the funds that I mentioned, the $15,000 and $15,000, will be more for kiosks, some safety things that we want to improve, life jacket issues, things that have been problems there in the past. That's where the funds will be utilized, and then in contribution to what Deer Creek State Park is doing as well. And those numbers are actually changed. It's actually $988,000 that they're putting towards this, and that includes some recreation grant funds, as well as a lot of funds that are coming from the BOR. And where this project is at right now, it's just about ready to go out on bid. There's a couple of permits that are just getting finished, but probably in the month of May, it will go out on bid, and that bid will be awarded to a contractor. And by August 19th, I think is the date that they have, is when they want to actually be doing the construction. That is August 19th of this year. So they're really hoping to make this happen pretty quickly. So in a nutshell, we feel that there's going to be some opportunities to improve angler access on the lower Provo River with the help of the funds that we are asking for. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or clarify anything.
Questions or comments, Drew?
Before Drew responds, I know what he's going to ask. So we'll just fill you in on motorboat access. And so, am I right?
Done.
Am I right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
All right, so we did talk with Craig about this. Basically, how it went down, it sounds like the state parks kind of approached Mike after the motorboat access deadline. So, but we did talk with Craig about it regardless. And when they have the motorboat access meeting to talk about the projects that did make that deadline for this upcoming year, if there's anything left, we can cover it out of, cover some of these asks out of that. But we're kind of waiting because that meeting has not happened yet.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Deer Creek State Park actually had money, Drew, from another project that they were going to do, and that's where they've pulled this money and said this is a little more important. They weren't ready to do the island work that they're calling it, so that's where a lot of the money came from.
Any rebuttals, Drew? Add additions? Okay. All right, I've got a question online from Bert, and we'll go to that. Bert.
Hi there. Thanks for inviting me to participate. I was a cold water representative on the Blue Ribbon Fisheries Advisory Council from 2015 to 2021, so I know what's going on here. I wanted to point out that the Utah Stream Access Coalition has about 7,000 members. We represent their interests and the public at large to secure access to Utah's publicly owned rivers and streams for all kinds of water-based activities, including angling and boating. And it turns out that boaters are a significant portion of our membership, especially whitewater boaters. And this community, through the efforts of the Utah Whitewater Club, has for the last decade generously supported our work. So this project, 6890, provides a unique opportunity for us to give back to this community. And that is why the board of directors of the Utah Stream Access Coalition has approved a grant of $10,000 to support this project. In fact, it's the coalition's hope that this improved infrastructure will, as well as, this hasn't been mentioned, but the potential collection of floater fees by Deer Creek State Park. We hope that these measures will encourage the responsible use of and enhance law enforcement efforts on the lower Provo River, an arguably navigable river. From the wildlife perspective, as someone who's been in the riparian habitat for many years, I love watching bird life, wildlife, muskrats, otters, all kinds of birds. And I think it's great to provide this opportunity for wildlife watchers to see this from the water. So consequently, I strongly encourage support of this project by both Blue Ribbon and Habitat. And that's it. Thank you for letting me have a minute or two to explain our position, and we're happy to provide this $10,000. Thanks.
Thanks, Bert.
Thank you, Bert. Maybe, can I ask one more thing? Back to the images. There's a document there that might paint a little better picture for you. I mentioned boat ramps and paved roads and things. Slide down to the next page. Oh, looks like it's sideways. Maybe just to reference you here. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Highway 189 is up here, and they're going to pave this road all the way down. This is all dirt parking lot right now, and they're going to pave all of this area. Big boat ramp coming into the river, hand launch right here, steps. That's really what we're trying to do, what we're really wanting to do on the big picture of up there right below the dam. And that's where all that money's being spent by Deer Creek State Park, BOR, others.
All right, other questions, comments? Go ahead.
Are the takeouts going to be gravel? Are they going to be concrete as well?
They will not be concrete. It'll just be gravel and rocks. Right now, it's big, giant boulders, and you stop and you try and climb up and out of the river, and we're just going to make that much, much more manageable. And that's where we'll use our heavy equipment to do that work.
Okay, other questions?
Is it floatable 365 days a year or just during high release?
It is floatable.
Is it?
Yep. Yep. It goes down to 75 CFS in the winter time. You don't see many people really floating it in the winter, but this time of the year is really popular, you know, between now and mid-April. But then the summer, it gets an influx of millions, I'd like to say millions, of tubers and others that are using it.
Okay, other questions, comments? All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. So with that, we're going to take a quick break for about 5 minutes. Our time is a bit compressed because of what happened this morning. But let's take a 5-minute break till about 10:55. And then we'll jump back into some more projects. We've got, what, 7 more projects to complete before lunchtime. So we're going to start zipping.
I do.
Thanks.
Well, I think
About another 30 seconds here, so. It's for the AV team, about 30 seconds out. All right, everyone, we want to get started.
What happened there?
My soda was wet.
Not very
Okay,
good.
We're gonna jump back in here. We're gonna jump into some Northeast Region projects. First one is 6881 Cedar Springs Flaming Gorge fishing pier with wildlife viewing area. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Ryan Mosley. I'm the Flaming Gorge project leader in Dutch John. This is a collaborative effort with Cedar Springs Marina, which is down at the lower end of the reservoir near the dam. John and Stacy Rauch are actually the owners and operators of Cedar Springs Marina, so we've worked with them on this project. Trina Hedricks actually presented this project last year to Habitat Council, and it was suggested that we break it up into a boater access proposal and then a Habitat Council / Blue Ribbon proposal for the fishing pier component this year. There's actually a presentation under documents, if you could. Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, just go to the next slide, please. So once again, the floating trail component of this project that was presented last year is pending a boater access proposal this upcoming year. And like Trina said, they're hoping to have that information, approval or disapproval, by the end of the month. The floating trail component of the project is actually a 500-foot long interlocking easy dock walkway system, and that would run from the Cedar Springs public boat launch all the way over to the marina. The walkway or the floating trail essentially would provide a sustainable trail that could be utilized throughout different reservoir elevations. So instead of going through and actually reconstructing earthen trail, the floating trail could just be manipulated to offer operations throughout the different reservoir elevations. It would also include boat courtesy docking and then ultimately an attachment point for a fishing pier. Of course, down in the lower canyon of the reservoir, shoreline access is extremely limited. So this would provide an accessible location for anglers to access the fishery, and then it'd be close to amenities at the marina like parking and restrooms. Once again, Cedar Springs is actually the partner on this project. They'll actually install and maintain this facility, unlike in similar situations where we've relied on the Forest Service to do that, but the Forest Service is actually supportive of this project as well. Next slide. So this is a drone footage that John Rauch from Cedar Springs Marine actually took, and then coupled that with the drawing showing how this full apparatus would work. As you can see down at the down by the Cedar Springs public boat launch, there'd be an attachment point there with some courtesy docking for boaters using the public launch, and then a walkway system with shoreline attachment all the way down to the marina, and then the fishing pier This fishing pier is actually constructed of easy dock. It's interlocking dock system, so it can actually be manipulated into different configurations, which is advantageous as well. So this is just something that John configured, where you would have like a walkway out onto the dock. There'd be anchor points every 60 feet, and then around the fishing pier itself, there would actually be handrails to keep people safe, and then fishing rod holders and benches. In addition, we would actually install some honey hole dock dropper fish attractants. Natalie actually already has those, so we're not asking for money for that, but we would actually provide fish attractants under the fishing pier as well to hopefully increase angler success. Next slide. So the funding request, I left the full funding request on here, but everything that we're requesting from Habitat Council and Blue Ribbon Fisheries Council is actually in orange. It's about $90,000 for the entire project, for the fishing pier component, and then it would just be an even split between the two entities. Cedar Springs is also doing the in-kind contribution, so they're going to do the full installation. It's about $20,000 to do the full installation for the whole apparatus, and then a couple $1,000s for keeping up with annual maintenance. Any questions?
Go ahead.
Who's coming up with the other 212,000 or 218, I guess?
That was a boater access proposal, and we're still waiting to hear the results of that.
Okay, other questions?
Does it all hinge on that, the whole project, the boater?
No, so the beauty of the fishing pier, or at least being constructed out of easy dock, is it can be attached to shore, regardless of the floating trail system. Ultimately, if we don't meet approval for the floating trail system this year, we'll reapply next year again. But yeah, the fishing pier could go, if funded this year, it actually could just be attached to shore if need be.
Just a curious question, Ryan, is that for Cedar Springs, is that pretty labor intensive to move that up and down with the fluctuating water level?
Not for somebody like John Rauch. I'm sure he's sitting online and he could speak more to how much time consumption it is, but he's actually out listening to this meeting today while he's working on his marina. He constantly is doing something to his marina. He stays on top of it. And according to him, especially with the easy dock system, he's been very impressed with it compared to other dock manufacturers. It's extremely easy to use. He's got some of these products already. Yeah, it can be time consuming, but it's something that he's very accustomed to, does it on a regular basis. I mean, he lives right there at the marina, so that's the other beauty of it. Having somebody there to monitor it and maintain it throughout the year. And I honestly think a floating trail system like this, like we envisioned in our first meetings, with Craig Walker, Trina, Jordan, and myself, and John and Stacy, this is something that could be utilized as a template on other water bodies as well. I mean, we're constantly going to be dealing with fluctuating water reservoir elevations, but instead of constructing earthen trails, to get people from point A to point B, having a floating trail system like this that would just allow easier manipulation and access to different amenities will be advantageous for the future.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm assuming there's not any ice issues down there that low in the reservoir, but I just need to hear it.
Yeah, like in my career at Flaming Gorge, 18 years, I've seen ice down there just a couple of times. And that goes to show, like John, like last year was an anomaly. There was some ice issues there, but John maintains that. I mean, he does not pull his marina. He's one of the few marinas or of the three that we have up there, he leaves all his docks in year round. So we definitely don't deal with the issues like they do on the upper end of the reservoir. And it's not as... No. I mean, last year, I think it got so bad, he was out there, starting his boat engines and stuff. He actually had left a couple boats in. But, yeah, it's pretty rare that we deal with any kind of ice issues down there. And then a lot of times when you have ice production, you worry about, like, when it starts to break off, it's going to take docks with it. He's more protected where he's located compared to Lucerne or Buckboard.
Other questions or comments? Okay, I'll just say before you jump off, Ryan, I really love this project, and I'm glad that you're going for that other money. If you wouldn't mind going in the database and adding in the amount that you've requested from, the other recreation fund, just so that it's in there. Even if you haven't received it yet, that's okay. Put it in there, that's what you're anticipating.
Okay.
It might or might not come through. That way we see the total cost of
The whole
entire
project.
project compared to what these groups are financing, so.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. All right. Thank you. We're going to move on to our next project, 6893 Lake Fork Drainage Rotenone Treatment Horse Outfitter Support Phase 3. Who we got for that one?
We got me online.
Okay, go ahead, Ryan. Brian, sorry.
You're fine. Let's first go to the Documents tab under the attachments.
So Brian, remember to introduce yourself and who you're representing.
So my name's Brian Engelbert. I'm a regional aquatics biologist based out of the Northeast region. My fortes generally are cutthroat trout restoration, stream fisheries management, and then I usually take on some stream aquatic habitat projects as well. So the first slide is just a picture of the OWEEP project. We'll eventually get to see a map. This is on the kind of the main part of the Uintas, east to west. It's on the south slope. It'd be about 20 miles upstream of Moon Lake, if you know where that is. Let's go to the next slide. So this is a map of the treatment area. There's about 15 miles of highlighted stream here. So, we've treated a lot of this in the past. The pink section and the orange section, and then the very lower part of the yellow section are what's kind of given us trouble on this treatment. I should note this is the third year of this project. This hopefully will be the last time we see this proposal though. Next slide. So the need for the project is Colorado River cutthroat trout are our native trout. They occupy about 11% of the historic habitat. They've been petitioned for listing under the Endangered Species Act. They were found not warranted just because of a lot of projects that us and Wyoming and Colorado came together and planned a lot of projects to just prevent their listing and do our due diligence for maintaining that species on the landscape. But the main technique to keeping cutthroat or reestablishing cutthroat in the habitats is applying rotenone, removing non-native fish, and then establishing a new population. So it's a very intensive project, depending on where you're at, for sure. But that's our main tool to expanding range. Next slide. So goals of this particular project be remove all the brook trout. We like I had mentioned earlier, we've done that on a couple of years already. This is our third year of the project. We're down to less miles than the original 15.8. There's about half of that was definitely bacon at this point. This is just a follow-up cleanup treatment. Porcupine Lake also had some brook trout survive in there. That's a difficult lake to treat. And then looking ahead to this fall, we're already planning the restocking effort. Pending this successful treatment this year, as long as we don't see any fish residing residual from previous treatments, we are good to go to restock native cutthroat into these waters. That'll take place in the end of August. Next slide. So far as our methods, we've still got equipment up there and stashed under what's probably about 8 to 10 feet of snow right now. We'll have rotenone hauled up beforehand. A group of about 15 of us between the partner agencies of DWR, Forest Service, Trout Limited are going to travel in. We're going to dispense rotenone. This is an old presentation, so 5 days is not really accurate. It's going to be about 3 days this year. And then we've got a neutralization station down at the bottom of that treatment area that will operate for less than 5 to 10. It'll be about 3 or 4 days now, just to make sure we don't get any rotenone into the Lake Fork River proper. And then, once the rotenone is dispensed, the group packs out and heads out to the trailhead. Next slide. So post-treatment, this is the phase that we're all looking forward to, and pending a successful treatment this year, we should be looking forward to restocking with native cutthroat. Will go in a few years and monitor the success of those restocked fish. Then we're actually planning on about 4 years of restocking, just to try and give it its best chance of getting a persistent, naturally reproducing cutthroat population. Next slide. So the benefits for these committees, will be creating almost 16 miles of conservation population for cutthroat. Without seeing cutthroat in this area, there's nothing else remarkable in this particular drainage, or even across the whole center of the Uintas. There's no other cutthroat to go after. It's pretty much a very difficult to access, non-native stunted brook trout fishery that's existing right now. And it's so unremarkable that a weep itself, I have yet to really run into people who have fished the stream. By stocking cutthroat in there, we're hoping to attract some recreation use, some anglers. I should mention that parts of the stream and even Porcupine Lake itself, the one lake in this drainage, are right next to the Highline Trail. So if people are packing a rod, they could definitely fish this, and it'd be a pretty unique experience to claim you caught a cutthroat, native trout, up in here, and even claim it on your cut slam if you're into that. So yeah, this project is definitely a true partnership of all involved, and it's been pretty successful so far. One thing I'd add is the hydrology is just so complicated up there. It's kind of been a thorn in our side a little bit, where we're into a third year treatment, which we actually predicted we would need to do, but it's still a undertaking. Next slide. So this project would not be possible without the assistance of an outfitter. It's very remote, being up in the high Uintas wilderness. It's 22 miles from the Lake Fork trailhead. It's a little less from the North Slope. Typically, when our treatment crew goes in, they can come in off the East Fork or the Blacks Fork, and it's about 13 miles, so it's a good day trek in. But between the amount of camping gear, treatment equipment, chemicals, personnel, all the above, yeah, this project just wouldn't be possible without outfitting or hiring horse hire. So yeah, we have access to a few horses in our region, but the outfitter is just crucial to providing that additional support. In the past, we've gone in when we're going in and scouting the areas, we're able to get some of that done, but to pull off a root node treatment, it's beyond handy to have an outfitter there that cooks and can take care of livestock while you're actually completing the treatment. So yeah, during the treatments, our personnel are usually busy dispensing rotenone, and then yeah, the outfitter tends to camp. Next slide. So yeah, what we're asking, it's 35,000 and some odd change. 33 was left over for an old request. I was able to strike out the 33, but it wouldn't let me add in the actual request number. So some in-kind. So we've got 150,000 recognized for the NEPA. That's just a one-time in-kind. Then the rest of them are annual. What we have in terms of personnel services, division horse match, equipment, motor pool. So over the course of the years, we're looking at about $250,000 for completing this project, which is kind of relatively cheap when you're considering the length of stream that we're recovering. We got some pictures of just a few pictures of the treatment area that might be worth going through. And if anybody wants more pictures, I've got a bazillion on my hard drive, but this is kind of the treatment area. A lot of it's up there at about 10,500 to 11,000 feet. There's an abundance of waterfall fish barriers. Uh, there's a treatment crew from last year. I guess one question that might come up is why Blue Ribbon should fund it. It's in the Blue Ribbon recreation area, or the Blue Ribbon recognized fishing area. It's not actually identified as a stream, but it's within the Hyuinas. And then for Habitat Council, we view this as a habitat expansion for a conservation species. And so we're currently asking for $17,840 split between the two. And I think with that, I'd take any questions on this proposal. It's pretty straightforward. I think a number of you have seen this proposal in the past.
All right, questions on this one? Comments?
I'll just make a comment. Brian really kind of just hinted at this, but this is reaching the finish line of about a 35 or 40-year effort for the aquatic section Division of Wildlife. And it's not often you carry a conservation species to the finish line and satisfy all of the goals within the original strategy that we developed. And we've done that with Bonneville's, and this is one of the final areas that we need to complete a few projects for Colorado River Cutthroat. And, you know, one, and hats off to you guys and everybody in the room that's done the work. And two, I just, want everybody to recognize how important this is to us.
Thanks, Drew.
Like Drew hinted, I didn't really hammer it home. Part of the importance of this particular project to us is within the Hyuinas wilderness, we're not very, how do I put it, we don't really have that much for conservation populations in the near vicinity of this area. So it's pretty important to us to have some representation in that area. But the remoteness definitely throws some extra expense and challenges to getting this done.
All right, any other comments? Okay. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
No problem. I think I've got the next one as well.
Okay, so the next one is 6923, Strawberry River Restoration Project Phase 2. Go ahead, Brian.
Daniel, could we go to the images and documents first? And then the first one I want to go is that first attachment, the maps. So those of you that are not super familiar with, let's go to the second, that attachment with the next, what do you call it? Yep, page. So this is a map of the Middle Strawberry. Those of you that are not familiar with the Middle Strawberry, the right side, the east side would be where the Strawberry Pinnacles are at. If you were to go further east, you'd be looking at Starvation, the town of Duchesne. And on the left side, you can see just a nip of Strawberry Reservoir. Overall, we're looking at about 30 miles of highlighted stream here between the blue, the pink, the green, the purple. This map actually came off of the restoration plan, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight that there's a map here, and this map is a little bit higher resolution than the one I have in the presentation. One part in the presentation slideshow that I'll highlight will be kind of just pay attention to where the pink and the blue are, because I'll reference that as a pretty good quality, a reference quality stream that's recovered really well. And then this project and future phases are going to focus on the green and the purple on the east side. With that, could we go to the presentation? This is going to be interesting because it's almost a complete picture show rather than a presentation. Okay, so there's the Strawberry River. Yeah, it's nice in its nicest milk chocolate color when we're experiencing our worst days. Let's go to the next slide. It's a little prettier. Oh, next slide. There we go. So the year 2017, rewind the clock a little bit. Life was great. Gas was $2 a gallon. Loaf of bread was $1.70. And there was plenty of fish in the Strawberry River. Back then, we were a blue ribbon water. It was one of the crown jewels of the system. We were in the top 10 for most visited waters in terms of just number of anglers in the state that would go to the Strawberry. So life was pretty good back then. Let's go one more slide. You can see not only do we have a bunch of fish, but our habitat was really pristine. You can see excellent riparian condition. Water is crystal clear. Lots of abundant types of habitat between like a B channel with lots of pocket pools to more of an A channel with a lot more rocks and riffle run complexes to that picture on the right would be more of a montane meadow type of setting with deeper pools. Let's go to the next slide. Then 2018 happened. This was our strawberry cabin and it burned down during the fire. Next slide. And then we'll go one more slide. So the Dollar Ridge fire took place in June, July of 2018. We ended up having about 77,000 acres burn on us. This included a substantial amount of land owned by the Mitigation Commission, DWR, Forest Service, and private. If you've got a lot of spare time on your hands, you feel free to dig into the FONSI or the EA that is attached to this proposal. It really dives into the weeds of everything from land ownership and prior actions. But anyway, with this fire, let's go one more slide. You can see it had amount of devastating consequences between burying bridges. Virtually when this fire happened, it pretty much wiped out 30 miles of blue ribbon trout fishery in an instant. One more slide. So you can see it basically looks like a war zone. Let's go one more slide. Water like that does not bode well for trout. One more slide. You can see it was quite devastating in 2018. This is the depressing part before I start having a little bit higher spirits. Next slide. Okay, so yeah, looking at that, when you're a fish, this is kind of similar in a chemical or chemistry or respiratory action of the people of Pompeii when the pyroclastic flows came and suffocated all the people. This is basically what those fish went through. Let's go to the next slide. 2019 came. Next slide. We started our restocking effort. So between 2019 and 2023, we've stocked approximately 30,000 fish. You can see the habitat was still massively affected back then. In this picture, we are actually stocking where the old road used to be. And you can see a giant culvert in the background that was blew out from somewhere. I'm not even sure where that culvert's from. I think it's from Timber Canyon, probably about 3 miles upstream of that in hindsight. Next picture. So the next thing that kind of happened for the strawberry after kind of during this restocking effort is we had the emergency watershed protection funding proposals come through. Those came through the counties, Duchesne and Wasatch counties. The principal reason for that was to rebuild the road. We definitely got that, and we're very ecstatic that we have access now, but there were some consequences from a stream habitat perspective. One being a lot of encroachment into the stream or bank hardening issues, but it did have some negative consequences for fish habitat, as you can see in this picture. Next slide. Here you can see some bank hardening. Just some of the consequences were, bank hardening, and then in the lower sections, a lot of rock was actually harvested out of the channel over our objections for use as riprap, and those are kind of crucial features. Those are roughness features that us as biologists really see as critical for holding cover for fish. So I'm kind of setting the stage here to show some impacts to the fishery and then eventually what we would like to do. Next slide. This is an example of what they call the beaver dam analog. I've never seen beaver build something like this, but anyway, that it was put in place to try and collect some debris and stage it upstream, as well as slow down some of the water. And it does have its pros for sure in those regards. Next slide. This is kind of a photo to show you kind of like an end product of what it looked like in some sections with all the roughness elements moved out or utilized elsewhere. Next slide. This is a good picture showing what happened out of one of the side canyons. So those of you that don't know, this is a very erosive type of geology, a lot of shale, tended to be very flashy before the fire even. And then once we had the fire and the subsequent rainstorms, we had storms that were capable of moving several thousand acre feet of dirt in one fall swoop. So this definitely came as some channel consequences. Next slide. This kind of just showing an end product of the EWP project where we now have a pretty good mode of access through the entire corridor that we used to have. So we're definitely, yeah, a good standing there. In the background, there's a moose. I don't know why a moose would ever be there, but there is one there. Next slide. Just kind of showing you some of the in-stream work that kind of happened as part of the EWP project. Next slide. During the EWP project, we were able to install some structures. Some of them were beneficial. Some of them were not quite built correctly. The one on the right was one that we actually took with the Mitigation Commission crew last year, rebuilt. And I actually fished on top of this, what would be this structure yesterday, and hooked onto a brown trout, but a pretty nice one too. Next slide. Okay. Next slide. So kind of moving into the 2022, 2023, we've now completed a restoration plan. It's not really site specific, it's more reach specific on prescriptions or options of prescriptions. In 22, that was finished. And then 2023, the EA was signed. So we're good to go from that perspective. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And this is just showing you that pink section on the map, these next few slides of pictures. These are sections of the middle strawberry that are in pristine shape and honestly would fit everything to do with blue ribbon criteria at this point. Let's go just move through a couple of pictures here. There's a resident we caught last year. Next slide. So overall at the upper end, this is kind of a reference reach at this point of what the strawberry is capable of. Yeah, these guys obviously seem to like the burn. I see them in there regularly now. And I think that's my last slide. No. Still got a few more pictures. So those are reference conditions of what we foresee the lower part turning into with some substantial intervention and help on our part. In 23, we were able to go ahead and do a bunch of project with Mitigation Commission, meaning about 2 miles of it. We still have about 17 miles to go. Let's go ahead and go to the next slides. This is work we did last year with the Mitigation Commission's crew, the force count. We keyed in on river miles 17 through 19 and tried to rebuild some of the structures that were either inappropriately built or failed that happened during the EWP. And overall, we went and fished this section yesterday and took a look at it, and we're pretty excited about not only the project that we did last year, but the upcoming future of this section. Next slide. So these are within the project area, and then basically what we see as the future of this project. More. Next slide. And next slide. This is a before and after. Not the prettiest before and after, considering one was taken in winter. The one on the right, this is the same exact reach of river. The picture on the right is from yesterday, so it hasn't really regrown yet because it's winter. You can't really see that well on that picture on the right, but it's a series of cross veins that really broke up a really swift run and made all kinds of pocket water that you can fish on this now. I went and I saw 2 fish come after my lure yesterday fishing that, whereas the river on the left is not really even that fishable. And I think that's my last slide.
All right, thanks,
Let's
Brian.
go ahead.
Oh, yeah, Mark.
Let's go to the, I just want to hit the fish population stuff on
Okay.
the images and documents. And then I'll go to the finance after that. Let's go to Camelot JPEG. So this is just a fish population station we've monitored both historically and annually as of recent. This is showing that our fish are slowly coming back, especially as we get some either natural and or artificial habitat improvements. The other JPEG, Sulphur Springs, we can open it real quick, but it doesn't show anything different than this, that we're recovering both brown trout and cutthroat behind the fire. Let's go ahead and go to the finance page if you don't mind. So we're asking for $110,000 for fiscal 25. It's, as you can see, based on all the in-kind stuff, it's a relatively minor part of the overall budget. A lot of the budget is coming through a $8 million grant that Mitigation Commission received through stimulus funding. And the reason we're asking for funding is just to meaningfully partner on this project. This will directly benefit our agency because we're going to inherit this land. We're currently in the process of a land transfer to get this land from Mitigation Commission into DWR hands. By partnering on it allows our staff to have additional say and discretion in this project's direction. We have a lot more increased spending flexibility within our agency than Mitigation Commission has. Like, for example, if I would have had this funding pot last year, we would have been able to get quite a bit more done. They had some hiccups come about that they could not get around for their spending authorities, namely on rock, actually. We ended up running out of rock last year. There's definitely a lot of processes that we can just procure much faster, more efficiently than federal entities, I guess. By partnering right now, we can save time and money in the future, though. But if we can jump on board, otherwise, at the end of the day, I don't see the full that funding pot that Mitigation Commission has fulfilling every goal that we want to see on the strawberry. But if we can jump on board now to partner, this will avoid some kind of a piecemeal process that would take place later. Overall, I'm expecting this to be about a 4 or 5 year phased project, though. We're going to be hitting it for that long. I'll probably be coming back next year and asking for a similar funding pot, just to be able to continue collaborating, partnering, and matching with that mitigation money.
All right, thanks, Brian. Yeah, any questions or comments on this? I mean, if you weren't able to see the funding numbers on there, I mean, this is a $1.6 million project that, you know, we're asking from Blue Ribbon and Habitat Council about 55 grand each. The division greatly appreciates the Mitigation Commission and all the monies that they put into projects, and we work with collaboratively on. And so, I don't know, with that, other comments or questions? Okay. I don't see any. Thanks, Brian. Okay. We're going to move on to our next project, and I'm probably going to look to start zooming people up. We've got 4 more to go through before around 12:15-ish. So our next project, Strawberry Spillway Screen Installation Phase something.
Starvation.
Starvation, sorry.
Got all hung up on strawberry right there.
Yeah. 6927.
So I have a PowerPoint if you just want to go to the documents right there. Good morning, everyone. I'm Natalie Boren. We have had some change in our office, so Trina and I are partnering on this project, although she's making me take the lead on it now, which I greatly appreciate. It's super cool. But we will have a new, Blue Ribbon knows this now, I'm the new aquatics manager taking over for Trina in the Northeast region, and we have a new me here today, Josue Hernandez. You want to stand up for a second and say hi? This is Josue. You guys will meet him over the next few years. But we'll quickly jump into this. This is a project we've been working on since 2016, and we are almost there. Next slide. So background, this screen prevents escapement of walleye and smallmouth bass into critical habitat below in the Duchesne River, which ultimately runs into the Green River. The initial screen design was too expensive in 2016. Ironically, it's probably just as expensive now, but here we are. We installed this temporary screen, which we've been maintaining and repairing since 2016. It is brutal sometimes. Last year, it basically got destroyed by the flows. So they did a kind of a value engineering back in 2021 with all the partners to really decide on which screen we were going to go with. They decided it would be a modular picket weir on a concrete pad. At that time, it was inexpensive relatively to everything else, and it probably still really is. And then we had the least amount of liability issues with this type of design. Next. So this is kind of what it looks like on engineered plans. I believe there's a total of 31 panels that will be produced and span across the distance of the channel, the spillway channel. It seems like it'll work pretty good. Remains to be seen fully when we get done with it. But what's going to happen is, Trina's to the point where she's got the RQS and it's out for bid, I believe, right now. So we are to that point, which is great. The problem is everything is more expensive than it was before. So we're going to be able to fabricate about 2/3 of these panels this fiscal year. So part of this proposal has included now the remaining fabrication of these panels to complete the screen. So they'll go all the way across. They are picket weirs that are vertical or horizontal, and then they're designed to where if we have basically catastrophic flows come over the spillway, they will overtop the screens and it will just kind of make a nice flow motion over the top. If we have word ahead of time from the water managers, we can go in and lay these screens all the way down flat. So the water will just nicely go over the top of them. So a great engineering feat, I would say, making it this far to all agree on the same thing. Next. So here's the timeline. The screen fabrication is happening, will happen as soon as we get the contractor in place. We want to have that done as many as we can by the end of the fiscal year, and then the remaining panels will be fabricated at the beginning of next fiscal year. And then the contractors part of this proposal is to hire contractors to come in and install the screen and a couple other things that I'll show in the next slide. But from 2026, hopefully we have this as a fully functional, permanent fish screen that's mostly easy to clean and easy to operate. That is our goal. Next. So here's the funding request. The total is $194,500, and this is actually split between 3 different entities. So $20,000 from Blue Ribbon, $114,000 from Habitat Council, and then ESMF funding will be about $60,000. And here's the breakdown of what we're using those. So finalize the fabrication of the screens, about $80,000. Hiring that contractor to actually install the screen and get them all in place. Delivery is insane. And then engineering oversight, and we have to create an as-built set of plans for this structure once they are done. So that's what the ask is. I really would love to not have to present on this ever again, and I'm sure Trina would too. Any questions? Dave? ESMF, so that's Endangered Species Mitigation Fund. Yeah, it's just another funding pot that we have through the division.
And do these engineers have experience with this in other places?
Yes, they do. We've been through rounds of engineers, I feel like, at this point. So
It's like a lot of engineered things have failed.
I know it's tough, but I think we have the best ones that we can find at this time. Any others? Cool. Thank you all.
Thanks, Natalie. Okay. The next project we're going to look at is from our southeastern region, 6968 Gordon Creek Watershed Restoration. Tell us who you are and jump right in.
If I'm the last person here, you know, this is pressure getting you guys to lunch on time. So
No, there's
remember, if I get, I'll get through
There's
this quick.
two more after you, so.
Oh, never mind then.
So zip through.
So this is a collaborative. My name is Calvin Black. I'm the Assistant Aquatics Manager out of the Southeast Region for the division. This is a collaborative project with the Division of Wildlife, the Manti La Salle National Forest, and Trout Unlimited. This project is located in the Gordon Creek watershed or drainage, which is a tributary to the Price River, which is directly east of the town of Price. We're working in two streams, Bob Wright and Second Water streams. They're approximately about a mile away from each other, and our project location is right against the Gordon Creek Wildlife Management Area. So that's why it's called Gordon Creek Wildlife Management Watershed Restoration. This project is intended to improve riparian vegetation, rehabilitate stream function in both Bob Wright and Second Water, and to increase our distribution of Colorado River cutthroat trout in the region. We had populations of Colorado cutthroat in Bob Wright and Second Water. We lost those populations in 2012 due to the Sealy fire and of the debris flows and ash flow after that. We've waited this long because the upland, the hill slopes have just finally really got enough vegetation where we're not seeing big mudslides or anything else in that drainage. So this is why we're finally coming back, trying to reintroduce our cutthroat back in here and get our populations back. As you can see, it's down cut. What we're looking at to do is to install BDAs. We talked about BDAs already today. About a mile worth of BDAs in between Bob Wright and Second Water, and then PALs, which are post assisted log structures, similar to BDAs, but because we're away from the trail and away from the roads, we'll be cutting in deadfall that's along the stream channel, throwing it in the channel, and then pounding the posts in by hand just to make some roughage, some check dams basically to start catching sediment into the system and create some pool habitat for cutthroat. This is a picture of Bob Wright. Bob Wright is actually doing okay higher up. We just need to add some pool habitat. So division personnel and Forest Service personnel will be tasked to install PALs in this system, while everything else will be contracted out to others to do the BDAs and the PALs up Second Water. We're requesting funds about $73,000, $53,000 from Habitat, $20,000 from Blue Ribbon. Any questions? Make it sweet and fast for you guys.
Yeah, so where it is,
So for me, it's a great place because it's 15 minutes from my house. So this is a big priority for me. And some of these pictures might have been when I was grouse hunting up there too. So basically, if it's right behind the golf course between Helper and Price, and if you follow that drainage straight east, it's right against the headwaters there. If you pop over the Castle Valley Ridge, you're right to Schofield. So that's the drainage.
Second Water's in that area?
Yep, you can see, so that's Bob Wright right here, and then Second Water's right down here. Yeah, there's just little, black marks. There's more stream channel in this drainage through other tributaries in Gordon Creek. We tried stocking some sterile trout in some of those other tributaries a few years ago to see if they could survive and see if they needed any type of stream restoration. We actually had fish survive even through the drought in some of these other sections. So our goal is to connect everything and have, 10, 15 miles of stream habitat through the forest in our WMA.
Other questions? Okay. Don't see any. All right. Thanks. Are you on the next one too?
I'm on the next one.
Okay, so the next one is project number 7078, Recapture Reservoir Fish Habitat Enhancement. Go ahead.
All right, so like the last project, this is also a collaborative project with the Division of Wildlife, the Bureau of Land Management, and then Blanding City has also been involved with other aspects and parts of this project. You can zoom in. Yeah, it's that black section you can see there on the reservoir. What this project is entailed to do is to install artificial habitat structures for black crappie and largemouth bass in Recapture Reservoir. So when the reservoir is drawn down to conservation pool, which is about 45% capacity, all of our woody vegetation, all of our plant materials are exposed along the shoreline, and our bass and crappie have a hard time avoiding predators, mostly northern pike. And so our goal is to stick these structures in deeper water at full pool, but at low pool, these structures would be in about 20 to 40 feet of water to provide some type of refuge, some habitat for these fish to get away from our northern pike in there. We've seen some good success when the reservoir's full on spawning and everything like that, but we're hoping to, improve our fisheries down there by adding some of these structures. This would be just kind of a pilot project to make sure everything's working all right on this project, and then in the future we'll probably do something really large. The BLM has already done the NEPA for us, or we're working on the NEPA for this. In total, we're looking at about 3 acres worth of structure being installed into this reservoir throughout different locations. We've already got those marked off with the BLM and have gotten the thumbs up to do that. So we're asking $20,000 total, so $10,000 from each council for this project. San Juan and Grand counties have been kind of our focal area for the region for the past few years for large-scale projects, and this is just another project on top of everything else we're trying to do down there to increase our angler access, improve our infrastructure, and improve our fishery qualities down there also. Any questions? Like I said, I can make it quick and sweet. What's that? So we use the northern pike in recapture for part of our tiger muskie brood source, and so that's why we still have pike down there. So it's important that we keep a prey base, healthy enough to keep good populations of pike in there also.
Do you look to the muskie people for funding?
We haven't. This is the first year we've considered putting structures in. But I know Blake with Muskies Inc. They've been good to getting us gear and stuff before. But this is the first year where we're looking at doing structures like that. In the future, maybe next year, when we're looking large scale, we're talking 400, 500, 600 structures at once. That might be when we look to other partners for funding.
What is the northern pike regulation down there?
So it's pretty liberal. It's 20 fish, only 1 over 36. On a good day, you probably could catch that. I don't want to, toot my own horn. I think I could do that. But it's a very popular water, and a lot of the anglers down there have asked for the increased limit because they would like to have that harvestable component down there. And so we have seen an increase in size of our male northern pike since the regulation changed. So we've whittled down the numbers a little bit, but we went from like a 15-inch typical male to about 21 to 22 inches. So we're seeing decent sized pike now in our sampling.
So yeah, we Muskies Inc. wasn't aware of this project, but in the future we would definitely be interested, just because of the like you said, the component about the pike there being instrumental to spawning the tiger muskies. And after seeing that picture of your pike, I'm definitely interested in heading down there myself.
I should note that this project was going to be part of a bigger project with our boat ramp and parking lot, but because of some of the NEPA issues and timing with the BLM, we've decided to pull it apart and ask for funding this year instead of waiting till next year or the year after. So that's why it was kind of a quick entry because we pulled away from a larger project.
How is the largemouth fishery?
Great. We see bass on average up to 6.5 pounds, and quite healthy. So any type of structure to help. We see little guys and we see big guys. So we're hoping to have some more structure in there. The reservoir's 80% capacity right now, so we should see good survival and stuff.
Other questions? All right. Thank you. Okay, our last one for this morning comes from our Salt Lake office. Project number 6884, FY25 stream restoration training. Don.
Thank you, Eric. I'm Don Wiley, Aquatic Habitat Coordinator statewide for the Division of Wildlife, and I learned something today. Calvin doesn't keep secrets very well. He's probably going to triple the use down at recapture. I probably want to start out with just telling you guys at both councils, thank you for your support with aquatic habitat improvements over the years. I think this proposal has been funded for at least 15 years. We've done some really good work statewide, probably have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, doing the work ourselves rather than contracting it out. In addition, we've established some great relationships with landowners, allowed public access, established good relationships with our partners, state, NGO, and federal as well. And indirectly, through sending biologists to training, we've been able to provide some good constructive comments on stream alteration permits and other projects that go through UDOT and others that might be providing structures or whatnot on our waterways. So thank you. The proposal you have in front of you is pretty simple. It's just sending up to, I think, 10 biologists within aquatic section and habitat section to different trainings that are available primarily through wildland hydrology. We also like to send biologists to training for wetland delineation. We like to have a couple on staff so that when there's projects available that need wetland delineation, we can send them to those projects and save us a bunch of money rather than contracting that out as well. USU, Utah State University, used to offer a course on stream restoration, sediment transport. There's talks about that course coming back into play. If so, we'd like to send biologists to that as well, as it provides just a little bit different perspective than what we're getting through wildland hydrology, and it focuses more on principles and perhaps a little bit softer approach to stream restoration. And with that, the funding, we're asking for $15K from each of the councils. I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
All right, thanks, Don. Questions? Go ahead, Randy.
This is more just an observation because I really like that you're doing this. It seems like you did this last year, the year before as well, if I don't remember correct. So I'd like to just throw in just a talking point. I think this needs to be done for the biologists and for upland as well. And you can maybe do that for waterfowl. Some focus and some additional training will help highlight people's understandings and opportunities. This is something I would be all in for if we could do that on the upland side. And I think some of the changes that or suggestions you made in last year's annual meeting, I think bore fruits this year because we had some specific projects. Something like this, I think, would help even more.
All right, any other questions or comments on this? All right, thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. So with that, that concludes our morning session of combined projects between Habitat Council and the Blue Ribbon Council. So So with that, we're going to adjourn for an hour, basically till 1 o'clock. And so we'll be meeting separately after that. The Habitat Council folks will move upstairs to room 2000 in our DWR offices. Blue Ribbon folks, you stay here, and Trina will continue your meeting down here to further evaluate projects. So with that, we're adjourned, and lunch, I think, is ready out here. And there's another room adjacent to us over here. By 1 o'clock, Habitat Council folks will be upstairs.